In this video, I'll be doing a tier list of the healers in patch 9.2 in both Raid and N+. Before we begin, I'd just like to say that about 95% of my viewers aren't subscribed to my channel, so if you're watching this content and you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out. It takes some time to put this content together, and I think I have some good content in the future. So if you like the video, like it, and consider subscribing. Alright, so before we begin, I just want to say that for 99% of the player base, every single content that you want to do can be done with every single healing class. You know, if you're not in the top 100 of the world in M+ PvP or Raid, then you really can play whatever you want and do well at it. That being said, you know, within everything, people want to be the best they can, and people want to play classes that are better than others relatively. So, I mean, you know, ranking them in a vacuum with each other. This isn't like a world first race or like top 100 M+ team ranking. This is kind of your generic, how good they are in like normal mythic prog or like just plus 25 keys, stuff like that. Like the higher end of gameplay, but not world first or like top 20 mythic plus team level. So yeah, we're gonna start with Raid, and for Raid we are going to start with Resto Shaman. So, Resto Shaman, I'm going to put him in S tier. I think Resto Shaman is probably one of the most well-rounded and all-around just good healers for Raid this patch. They bring a really good healing profile, as well as the ability to do quite good damage with Lava Burst and Flame Shock and Lightning Bolt while they're not healing, as well as Chain Lightning. Rain, Riptide, and Totems can bring really good passive healing. They have really good spot healing due to their mastery and the crit from their tier set. Their tier set, the 2-piece, your critical healing increases the critical chance of your next chain heal by 2% up to 50 times. Generally, you only need about 30 to 35 because you have natural crit rating as well. And this kind of leads to a big kind of nuke chain heal every time you get those stacks up. And the 4-piece is chain heal crits reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your totems by 2 seconds. And then your healing stream / Cloud Burst, Healing Tide, Mana Tide, and Spirit Link also cast chain heal when you drop them. So this kind of allows you to reduce cooldown of all your totems. It matters more on some totems, like the Kyrian totem does get reduced, and 2 seconds off that is kind of a big deal. 2 seconds off of Healing Tide is less of a big deal. But that's kind of the lesser point of the 4-piece. It also, the chain heal is kind of the big part. Just getting a bunch of free chain heals is really good for throughput. Their damage with Kyrian is insane. They just kind of blast. And they have really good utility in DR for a lot of situations, as well as Ankh. Ankh can be really good for just, you know, if you mess up or just kind of cheesy mechanics. They have Ancestral Protection Totem, which is a good raid cooldown. They have Spirit Link, which is 20% DR. They have Healing Tide, which is a raid cooldown. Resto Shaman, they're just a really good pick, and they're going to be really good in almost any scenario that you'll have them in, and they have the ability to do good damage when not healing. Next, we're going to do Restoration Druid. So their tier set, the 2-piece healing from Rejuve, has a 25% chance to grant Renewing Bloom, which is a small dot that heals 20% spell power over 8 seconds. And then Swift Mend can consume that. And then the 4-piece, every 3 casts of Swift Mend grants you Incarn Tree of Life for 9 seconds. So I'm going to throw my Resto Druid friends up in A tier. So they had buffs, like I think it was a 10% just healing aura buff, as well as their tier set's really good. I think it's like an 18% throughput if you play around the tree procs properly, which you will. Leads them to like a really high throughput class, which in my opinion, any class that doesn't bring DR or really good damage should be a high throughput class. So I think Blizzard's doing this right here. I think every tree proc you're able to have your Minute Convoke with Night Fae, which leads to a lot of burst healing whenever it's needed. And then you're able to do good damage as well by cat weaving or owl weaving whenever you're not healing. They're more of a dot class for damage, so even when they do have to go into healing, they'll still have like dots taking on the boss and do some passive damage. The fact they don't have a DR hurts them, but I think just their overall ability to kind of just do a bunch of throughput, a bunch of damage, puts them in A tier. Maybe they're S tier. I don't know. I might be underestimating their throughput, but I think A is a good place to put them with no DR and a relatively low class utility outside of Roar and B-Res, but a bunch of other classes also bring that. Yeah. So next, we're going to go do Holy Priest. So Holy Priest, I'm going to throw into B tier. I think a lot of the buffs to Holy Priest really help with its niche and healing, as well as damage. And they changed the Afterlife talent, which kind of lets you, whenever you die, you can use it to res somebody, which you can use to cheese mechanics. Gives it a niche. I don't believe that that niche is going to be fully realized in the next raid, and I also its damage is, while it's been buffed, it's not as good single target because again it's active damage. You can't be healing while you're damaging, which is just a big issue for a lot of healing classes in WoW. That's kind of just been emblematic of the game and going on. It's tier set, the 2-piece. Your holy words begin Divine Conversation, which increases the cooldown reduction of your next holy word affecting spell by 15 seconds. So when it's like the conduit, whenever you use like a holy word chastise or something like that, the cooldown of your next like smite, flash heal, or like renew is increases the cooldown of the proper spell of 15 seconds. And the 4 set is that the effect Divine Conversation also increases the effectiveness of your next holy word affecting spell. This can be the damage of smite, and it also could be the healing of heal. So that adds a nice little passive damage bonus. It adds nice healing. This was nerfed to not work with salve, which it was crazy with salve. You could just have like I think 2-minute salvations, which was insane. That being said, I don't think their damage is enough to really be crazy overall. I think their healing is quite good, especially their spot healing. But I think it brings less than Discipline Priest, and I also think it brings less. Well, it doesn't bring a DR. That's what I was trying to say, and that's kind of big in higher tier progression rating, or like high end mythic. Whenever you're first clearing things, damage reductions are super important, and I believe Disc also has a better healing profile. So I'm gonna put it down in B tier. That being said, I think this is the one I could be the most wrong about. I could see it moving up in the tiers. Night Fae can bring good damage with cooldown reduction on another class, and then Power Infusion is always gonna be good. That being said, I could be wrong about this, but I'm going to put them in B tier. Next, we're going to do Discipline Priest, the other priest class. We're going to give that an A. I think, Disc has always been a pretty good rating spec. They bring good damage while also healing. They bring the ability to do large ramps to combat damage spikes, and they just get better as fight timers are known. The ability to swap covenants and double legendaries kind of gives them a lot of versatility for damage intake in each fight. You can do Venthyr and the Penance legendary for kind of more frequent mini ramps, kind of the stuff you'll see on like Anduin. And then you can do Clarity of Mind and the Kyrian legendary for like a larger ramp every 2 minutes, like on Desagne or a few other fights. So their ability to kind of effectively cover so many different large spikes of damage is super important healer profile in your healing team for progression, and I do think that having one Disc Priest will be good. Barrier is crazy. It has a massive DR. It's like 30%, which is just huge, and it covers a good area. As well, they have PI, which is good damage to another class. Their tier set is a little bit the 2-piece is a little lackluster. So 2-piece casting Power Word Shield or Shadow Mend has a 15% chance to make your next cast of Shadow Mend have no cast or cost. So this just gives you more free atonements, more free ramp, which is fine. That wasn't really an issue they'd have in Raid. And the 4-piece, Power of the Dark Side, increases the effectiveness of Penance by additional 45% and is triggered when Powered Radiance cast. This kind of gives you more oomph into your ramps, so they can have bigger ramps and kind of a more damage from Penance, because, effectiveness is damage and healing, so Penance will hit harder, and then you'll get more atonement healing. And you cast Radiance while you're ramping, so it leads to ability to better deal with damage spikes, so I think that A tier is well deserved for Disc. Okay, we're going to Holy next. Holy was at S tier for a lot of the time in Shadowlands, but I think all the recent nerfs have brought it down to A tier. Their damage was always crazy, specifically because of Venthyr and just kind of their passive ability to do damage while also healing. It's just such a strong ability to be able to do that while in raid and just in content generally, because damage will kill things, and if things are dead, you don't have to heal. That being said, the nerfs have brought them down from their kind of S tier dominance, and their raid healing is like lower, but they're like tank healing specialists almost. Their tier set brings interesting options. So the 2-piece casting World of Glory causes your next Light of Dawn to heal for 50% more and cast twice, and this happens every 30 seconds. And then the 4-piece is each target hit by Light of Dawn has a 50% chance to reduce the remaining cooldown of Wings, Avenging Wrath, by 2 seconds. So this can lead to really high Wings uptime. Wings got nerfed for Holy because of this, which, I don't know, I think nerfing the tier set would be better than nerfing wings, but it's whatever. This actually also opens up Necrolord as a possibility. Necro can lead to really high wings uptime and really high throughput for the raid, but I don't think the nerfs to Venthyr are enough to really knock it off of the top spot for Holy in raid. I think it's less throughput, but like overall, but it's throughput that comes at a time when it's most important, right? Because you can use Ashen as a big damage and healing CD when needed. The damage is less and the healing is less, obviously, because it got nerfed. But it's still really good, and then the legendary lets you kind of cancel it early whenever you don't need it anymore and get CDR on that, which could be situationally useful. Generally, CDR is only useful if you can plan around when you get the next use of it. Like, if it reduces it to a random amount, depending on whatever, then you can't, like, guarantee you'll have it for the next damage event. But if it lets you have it all the time for another damage event, then that's really good. Paladins also have, like, great utility with all their bops and not spell warding, that's only prot. Bop and sack and freedom and aura mastery, 20% DR that has no range, and then they just have the passive 3%. So I think A tier is really good for for Holy. The nerfs kind of brought them down from S tier, but I still think they'll be a really good option with either the ability to go more throughput with Necro or the ability to do kind of the big AoE kind of cooldown with Venthyr. And then last but not least, we have Mistweaver Monk. So Mistweaver I'm also going to throw into A. The kind of order within the tiers don't really matter. I'm just kind of putting them in each block. So Mistweaver, if you asked me this about a month ago, I'd say they're solidly S tier. Their throughput was insane by far and away the best in the game. But Blizzard nerfed the Venthyr legendary by about 50%, which caused them to kind of come back down. And then also their tier set is kind of interesting. The 2-piece doesn't really do much. Its Essence Font is residual healing effect is increased by 5% and lasts 2 more seconds. And the 4-piece is whenever you drink Thunder Focus Tea, which is a 30-second cooldown, you get a rune on the ground that increases all healing dealt while inside its bound by 450. So this causes a gameplay change where you want to prioritize smaller, more frequent hits over larger, big hits. So think like Chi Burst and Refreshing Jade Winds. Sorry. These kind of small hits will all benefit from the tier set and will kind of lead to a larger gain from it, which is an interesting gameplay change from what you had before. Mistweavers bring the Monk buff, which is always useful, and they also bring passive damage from Spinning Crane, from Rising Sun Kick, from Tiger Palm, from Black Hat Strike. So all that things are very good and are good with Mistweaver. They also bring kind of very efficient cooldowns, you could say. They don't have a DR, which does, obviously no damage reduction reduces their viability, but I think their throughput's still really good. They have 2 minutes on Fallen Order, which does hurt it, but 2-minute Fallen Order is still really strong. They have Revival, which is like a raid-wide lay on hands, and they have the option of bringing GG, although I think Refreshing Jade's better. I could be wrong on this. They could still be S tier. I'm pretty sure that the nerfs were enough to bring them down from like their god tier status into A tier and be more in line with like Resto Druid levels of throughput. But we'll see how that ends up. It could be that I misread, like I'm just wrong on that, and they're still S tier with their insane throughput. But time will tell on that one, and we'll see if I'm right on that. But this is how I think they'll end up. All right, so next we're going to move on to the M+ portion of the tier list. Now, again, I'm going to say the same thing I said in Raid. If you're not in the top, however many, like 20, top 100 in the world, then you can and should play whatever you like. Everything and anything can do all of the content in the game up to a level that most, like 99% of the people in the game are happy with. So play at the end of the day, play what you want, play what brings you fun. That being said, we can and will rank things compared to each other so that people who, want to play the best can play the best in a vacuum. But generally, playing what you like and playing what you enjoy will bring you better performance and a greater ability to kind of enjoy this game, because that's what it is. It's a game at the end of the day. Now, that being said, I'm here to rank things. I am the guy doing the tier list. So we're going to start with the easiest thing I've ever done and putting Shaman in S tier. Resto is insane in M+. They're just by far and away the best the best healer for M+. There's nothing close to it. The M+ meta last year, so 9.1, moved away from being able to heal large amounts and moved kind of into being able to do a lot of damage. And I don't see that changing. I think this will stay the same in 9.2, perhaps even more so with the added with a change to the affix, where the affix is more present in a bunch of different parts in the dungeon. That being said, Shaman is crazy. It's the only healer with a kick. Also is the best kick in the game. It's the shortest and is ranged. Has an AoE stun. It has snare. It has frog. It has almost unmatched utility in dungeons. Has a good healing profile. Its mastery is really good for triage healing to kind of get people up. And then Riptide can kind of just sustain people, as well. The tier set 2-piece, which you're whenever you crit heal, you gain like 2% stacking up to 50 times crit chance on chain heal, so you can just drop big chain heal nukes whenever you need. And the 4 set, your totems drop free chain heals, and then your chain heal crits reduce totems by 2 seconds, lead to kind of a good passive healing stream as well, so that you're able to damage more. And as well, they just bring insane damage. So the Kyrian Legendary is incredibly high burst, probably the highest from the healer every 40 seconds or so, with the ability for it to be lower because of the 4-piece. And then they can also run double damage Legos with Earth Ellie, which brings even higher damage. Their healing is great. They have, they're pretty healthy with Astral Shift and the ability to get the defensive from the Earth Elemental. They have good cooldowns. Healing Tide, Ascendance, Spirit Link is a good tank personal. They're just insane. They're really good. I do expect them to be nerfed a little bit. They're kind of that crazy, but Resto Shaman is just, it's an incredible pick. Damage is unmatched, and it's going to be so good. Next, we're going to move on to, I want to do Holy Priest, because I'm a big fan of Holy Priest. It's one of my favorite healing specs, and I'm going to give them an A tier, which I think is actually really, really good and impressive. So they're looking actually really competent this time around. I'm going to start with the tier set 2 in case you skip the raid section. So the 2-piece, Holy Words begin Divine Conversation, which increases the cooldown reduction of your next Holy Word affecting spell by 15 seconds. So whenever you use a Holy Word like Chastise, your next spell that reduces cooldown, so like Smite in this instance, will reduce it by 15 extra seconds. So you can use that to kind of just pump out damage or healing. And then the 4th piece, Divine Conversation, also increases the effectiveness of your next Holy Word affecting spell by 60%. So whenever you use a Holy Word, the next one that reduces stuff, so Flash, Heal, Renew, and Smite, is increased by 60%. So the tier set can be used for either a decent damage buff from Smite, which is great. You always love damage, or healing if you need it. That being said, I think you'll use the damage more often, because Holy Priest's healing is already really pretty decent, profile for Mythic Plus, with the ability to just kind of pump heals into people with Flash Concentration. You're not changing away from that. Flash Concentration is too good. But another big thing that double legendaries gives is the ability for 1 minute boon. Boon of the Ascended can bring some insane AoE damage whenever you're using it, and the ability to just kind of throw Guardian Spirit on the tank and just slam away the boon and do like 15k, 16k burst from a healer is really valuable. The only downside from it to Shaman is that Shaman can do this every 40 seconds, and it's much more passive. That being said, Holy also got 10% damage buff and like a 15% healing buff. So I think Holy is going to be in a really good spot, damage-wise as well as healing-wise. I think the one thing that could hold it back is that its damage is more active, and this could end up being a bigger deal than I'm making it out to be. But I think that Holy will be quite good in M+. It'll be a really good pick, and I'm super excited to level, to gear up my Holy Priest ult more and slam some keys with this. Okay, we're going to do Resto Druid next. Shout out to my man Gross. So Resto Druid, I'm going to give A. Resto Druid is already a really good option in 9.1, and I think that the damage buffs that they're getting and the healing buffs they're getting leads to them being even better. The only reason they're not S tier is that they're not Shamans. Shamans are just that crazy. They're like the prop paladin of healers. As well, Kyrian got nerfed. Kyrian can still be good in the right scenarios if your bond partner can get the most value out of it and you're always hitting the reduction on the button. But Necro also, with the double legendary, being able to run Circle or Draught as well as the Necro legendary, can lead to some high damage scenarios in M+, as well as some high healing if you're chain pulling, which I think the meta will be, because the affix with the Autonoma really leads to kind of a chain pulling meta. We'll see that Resto Druid will be really good because they're also pretty good on mana usage. Their tier set, Healing from Rejuve, has a 24% chance to grant Renewing Bloom, healing 20% of spell power over 8 seconds, and then Swift Men can consume it. Is a 2-piece, and then 4-piece, every 3 cast Swift Men gives you Tree. I think a lot of the time the 4-piece will be very useless and you'll end up shifting out of Tree of Life to do more damage, but it's good if you need it. You can plan around the Swift Men usage so you know when you're going to get it. but generally you're going to probably shift out a tree for more damage. I think the 2-set is actually more valuable in M+, because you get another mastery stack, which can help you kind of prop people up, and then, you know, just shift back into cat and go into melee. Overall, I think Resto's going to be in a really good spot. Their damage is quite high, single target or AoE. It already was, and it's getting better. As well, their healing is really good. And they bring a B-res, they bring roar, they bring a soothe, and they bring a stun, they bring a root. All these things are super important in M+, and I think you're going to see a fairly high representation of Resto Druid in those circles. All right, next we're going to do Disc Priest. Disc I'm going to give B tier, basically where they were last season. Disc basically doesn't gain a lot from 2 legendaries. You're going to grab Sun Priest Blessing, which is the double PI one, which is good. And then Spheres, which are already running, brings the 1-minute boon. But their healing profile is a lot less suited for M+ than it is for Raid, so they're not able to kind of effectively do this. As well, they don't really have a good option to do AoE damage. A lot of their damage is going to come from just PI, which Holy also brings, and which you'll just get more damage out of like the Resto specs. Their 2-piece kind of alleviates the ability, like their downside to healing. So again, 2-piece, casting powered shield or Shadow Mend has a 15% chance to make your next cast of Shadow Mend have no cast or cost time. And the 4-set, Power of the Dark Side increases the effectiveness of Penance by additional 45% and is triggered when Powered Radiance is cast. It brings more damage, but you ramp a lot less in dungeons, right? Like, you can't have the big ramps that Disc is just so good at in raids. It's a lot of just kind of Shadow Men healing, which isn't, like, the best to get through. They have good damage, and they're still in, like, a decent spot. Like, they're an alright pick. But I think Holy is going to be better. And they're not gaining as much, kind of, relatively as other specs are gaining. I think this one is probably one of the ones I could be wrong about. They could be A tier. I think they're B. I don't think their healing will be as useful as kind of the others, and I think their damage is kind of too low. But we'll see how that ends up. Alright, so next we're going to do Mistweaver. So Mistweaver, I'm going to give C tier. Someone's got to be the worst. So we'll start with the tier set just because I'll get it out of the way. It's on my screen here. So 2-piece, residual healing of Essence Font's residual healing effect is increased by 5% and lasts an additional 2 seconds. And the 4-piece Drinking Thunder Focus Tea summons a rune which increases all healing dealt well inside of it by 450. So while they were good in Raid, I think they're a lot worse in M+, because a lot of like the good stuff doesn't transfer. Tier set doesn't bring a lot. A lot of times you'll end up having to move out of the rune or not get full benefit from it as well. 5% of Essence Font doesn't really like do almost anything. They also don't have the ability to run like double DPS legendaries. I don't think they have. I think they do like Invokers and that's about it. But you'll probably be running Teaching the Monastery and Venthyr one. And all their like damage is Spinning Crane Kick, and you can't heal while Spinning Crane is going off. You have to use, like Rising Sun Kick and stuff. So I think that leads to kind of low damage and like all right healing. They have really good cooldowns with Chi-Ji and Revival and the Venthyr ability, but Venthyr ability being moved to 2 minutes from 1 with the legendary nerf really kind of hurts the spec, as that's also a damage and healing loss. And their utility with like Ring and Paralyzing Touch is, while it's useful in M+, a lot of other classes can bring that, and Windwalker and Brewmaster are both looking to be like really good. So I think C tier is kind of a solid pick for them. Their healing isn't the best, their damage isn't the best, and they're just kind of all around like meh. But yeah, that's where I'm going to put them. And last but not least, we have Holy Paladin. So Holy Paladin used to be up in S tier with Resto Shaman last tier, but I think moving them into A for this tier is fair. Everything I said about Holy in Raid is essentially the same for M+. So we'll go over that again if you skip that. So the tier set is Casting Word of Glory causes your next Light of Dawn to heal 50% more and cast twice. Happens every 30 seconds. Excuse me. And the 4 set, each target hit by Light of Dawn has a 50% chance to reduce remaining cooldown of wings by 2 seconds. So this leads to fairly high wings uptime, as well as a decent throughput gain for M+. You don't use, like, you're more spot healing in M+ than you are kind of AoE raid healing. But you're still going to get use of this. The throughput is good. You can bring Venthyr for like a large cooldown and more organized gameplay, or Necro for more throughput, or kind of just like if you're pucking and you don't know the route that your random group is going with, Necro might end up being better. The new legendary for Venthyr lets them use Ashen more often. and they have great passive damage and a healing profile for M+. The reason I'm dropping them out of S tier down to A tier is that, one, the nerfs bring them more in line with a lot of the other classes, and two, Resto Shaman is just so nutty with everything they do that it deserves kind of to be the only one in S tier for this tier. But Holy Paladin is also in a good spot. You bring good utility, you bring good passive damage, you have a really good healing profile for M+, and overall it's going to be a good pick if you want to play that. Alright, so those are my thoughts for Raid and M+, for Healer meta and Healer balance for 9.2. I'll update this probably midway through the tier or whenever if we get tuning changes. But comment down below if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, where you think I'm wrong, where you think I'm right, and just showing what you want to see in the future. And if you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out a lot. And thank you for watching.